Hi there, everybody. This is Jason Holland, the International Living roving Latin America editor. I'm based in San Miguel de Allende, Mexico, which is in the central highlands of Mexico. So I just wanted to go over the subject here of the cost of living in Mexico. As with many of the countries that International Living covers, you can experience a lower cost of living than you're used to living in the United States or Canada, and there are a lot of factors that go into that. So we're going to go into kind of a typical monthly budget for the average retired couple. I'm going to share some examples of things that you can do to live on even less money, and ways you can spend a whole lot more money too, living in Mexico. And I'm also going to talk about some of the big expenses you can expect, ways to save, and things that me and my family are able to do and afford here in Mexico that we were not able to when we lived in the United States. Okay, so first let's go over kind of an average budget. And as with everything, your mileage may vary. It's going to be up to your personal lifestyle and choices, how much exactly you actually spend when you live in Mexico. But this is kind of a typical average budget based on countless interviews with expats who live in Mexico, my own personal experience, the experience of my friends, all the research that we've done over the years on cost of living in Mexico. Okay, so rent for a two-bedroom home or condo, you're looking about $700 to $750, and this is in a nice area, not a dangerous part of town or a bad neighborhood. This would be in a top area popular with expats, and probably a fully furnished home, right down to the cutlery in the kitchen, the sheets in the bedrooms, and the towels in the bathroom. So really it's turnkey. All you have to do is show up with your suitcase to move into one of these rentals. Now, utilities, including electricity, gas, water, your phone, cable or satellite TV, and your internet service, you're going to be looking at about $150 per month. Now, there is a bit of a caveat there. Electricity, the rate that they charge for electricity is actually pretty high in Mexico. And what we're talking about is if you are on the beach, if you're in a hot and humid area of Mexico, like on the Pacific coast or on the Riviera Maya, you're going to be using your AC a lot, and that's going to use up a lot of electricity. So you're probably going to be doubling your electric bill in those parts of Mexico if you don't acclimate to the climate and get used to some heat and humidity and just use fans and keep the windows open. I know from my personal experience, when my family and I lived at a condo at the beach near Playa del Carmen on the Mexico's Caribbean coast, our electric bill for a two-bedroom condo could be as much as $300, $350. We pay a third of that here in the Colonial Highlands, which has a temperate climate year-round, no need for AC or heat. So that's kind of a caveat about electricity. I'll go into a little bit more about that in just a moment. Okay, groceries. You're looking at about $300 to $350 per month for a typical couple. Entertainment, things like dining out, going to see live music, going out on the town, having fun, doing some activities, going out dancing, whatever you want to do, dance classes, all that's available in Mexico. Your entertainment, you're looking about $200 to $250 per month. Healthcare. This is a big concern for a lot of people. And in Mexico, there's actually two public healthcare systems. One, you can only join one of them, one of the two. One of them is called IMSS, and this is a government-run healthcare system primarily intended for employees of Mexican companies. But as an expat who becomes a resident of Mexico, you can join this system. And you're looking at about several $100s per year per couple for complete coverage, and you can visit any of the clinics or hospitals associated with this system and get your care there for free after you've paid this fee. There's also another new system that just was rolled out in January 2020. It's called Insabi, and in this system it's primarily intended for very low income families in Mexico who do not have otherwise available health care. They don't have insurance, and they cannot afford to pay cash for health care. So in Mexico, they have this system called Insabi. It's brand new, and so far expats can join, and actually your care is completely free in this system. But the care, the wait times, the quality of the facilities probably isn't what you're going to be used to. So it is a good kind of backup plan, but I always recommend that expats who are coming to Mexico, if you do, especially if you have health conditions, you probably want to get some sort of private healthcare insurance, and it works out to about $2,000 to $3,000 per year in premiums for a typical policy for a typical retired couple. And that gives you coverage throughout Mexico, not in the United States, just in Mexico, maybe some other countries in the world. One thing about the insurance, remember, just like anywhere, pre-existing conditions, your general health, your age, are all going to be factors that can kind of change that $2,000 to $3,000 that I just quoted you there. But that's a good starting point for healthcare coverage in Mexico. Now, a big bonus to living in Mexico is the ability to hire household help affordably, maid, gardener, that sort of thing. To have somebody coming a few times a week, you're looking at about $120 to $135 per month to pay those folks to come in. Now, the monthly total is going to be right about $1,800, $1,900, under $2,000 per month for the typical retired couple. That's all in, all your expenses, transportation, all that good stuff. That's all calculated in there. Now, as I said, everybody's kind of lifestyle and requirements are different. So it's possible to live on much less than that. It's possible to live on $1,000, $1,200 per month if you can. It's also possible to spend a whole lot more, to spend double or even $5,000, the typical monthly budget that I was talking about. If you spend a lot less, you're probably going to live in a smaller condo or apartment, smaller home, still in a good area, but not on the main expat areas or not on the main tourist drag, not in the most popular parts of town. You'll be in a nice family neighborhood, and you can pay as little as $300 to $400 per month in rents for 1 or 2 bedroom apartments in one of these places. So safe, but not on the main tourist drag, which you actually might prefer anyway, because you kind of get to blend in more with the local community. You can also save by shopping at local markets and eating at local restaurants. Because Mexico is a first world country in a lot of ways, there is a tendency for some folks to kind of have the same habits as they did back in the US or Canada, and they go to the fancy grocery stores and buy a lot of imported items. They go to the brand name restaurants and kind of enjoy a similar lifestyle than they did in the US. You can also get a big fancy house for $1,500 or $1,800 per month. And that's going to definitely blow your budget as well. If you live in a fancy gated community, if you live in a condo right on the beach, if you're out shopping a lot at the many boutiques and things like that, all that's available in Mexico is tempting, but that's definitely going to blow your budget. But if you have that cash available, if you want to have that lifestyle, perfectly fine too. You're going to have that available in Mexico. So typical average kind of budget, as I mentioned, just under $2,000. You could spend a lot less than that. You could spend a lot more, kind of depending on your personal lifestyle. Okay, now I want to go into some of the big expenses that you'll find in Mexico. So first, I just want to stress this, the electric bill, and this is primarily because of your air conditioning. Now, I live in a 4,000 square foot house in San Miguel de Allende. We're in the central highlands of central Mexico, a mountainous region. It's pretty dry. It's a temperate climate. Really doesn't get too hot except for a few weeks a year. It doesn't get too cold except for a few weeks a year. So we don't need AC, we don't need heat. So our electric bill, even with this 4,000 square foot house, we're looking at about $100, $150 per month, and often even less. But if you live on the beach, if you live in a place like Puerto Vallarta, Baja California, the Riviera Maya, places where it's hot and dry or hot and humid pretty much throughout the year, you're going to be running that AC, and you're probably going to be looking at double what I pay here for even a smaller condo or smaller home. So that's something to keep in mind, because the electric rates in Mexico are actually quite high. So that can be a place that you want to watch your budget. If you decide to live in a fancy gated community or a fancy condo by the beach, definitely expect to pay more as far as rents or even to buy real estate. If you're on the main tourist drag in Playa del Carmen, if you're 2 blocks from the beach, and you have nightclubs and restaurants and shops all along the street right outside your front door of your condo, expect to pay more, whether it's buying or renting. And that makes sense, right? If you go into the local shops, the supermarkets, and the fancy shopping malls that we have here in Mexico, and you buy a lot of imported items, you buy, fancy clothes, and you're buying the favorite foods you had from the U.S. that are imported, often you're going to be spending a lot more, than if you stuck to local products. And a little tip here: in Mexico, they actually have a lot of products that are exactly the same as the stuff that's imported from the US, and it sits right next to it on the shelf, but it costs half or less than that imported item. So that's a way to save. Now, electronics like TVs, smartphones and laptops, computers, cameras, things like that, do tend to be a bit more in Mexico. Not outrageously more, but electronics are definitely, you pay a premium for those in Mexico. So a lot of folks actually bring them from the US when they move down, either in their luggage or in a shipping container or a crate, or get mailed down, that sort of thing. Some things are subject to a customs duty or a tax, but usually if an item is for personal use and you're coming to Mexico, it's not really a problem. So that's a little tip there as well. Now, here are ways to save in Mexico and really tighten your budget. Shop at the local markets. Excuse me. Shop at the local markets. Every Mexican town has one, and you can fill your fridge for about $15, $20, $25, $30 per week, depending on what you're buying, with fresh fruits and vegetables, meat, cheese, fish, eggs, honey, herbs, pretty much whatever you can't buy in a box, you can buy at a market in Mexico. Excuse me, it's a little dry here in San Miguel de Allende. Now, you can also eat at local restaurants, and this is something my family and I do quite often. In the late afternoon, early evening, in every Mexican town, little street market stalls start popping up everywhere. Little places in my neighborhood, they sell tacos, they sell tortas, which are a Mexican sandwich. They sell, hamburgers, chicken sandwiches, pretty much, anything you can think of. You can get 50-cent tacos at one of these little places, and you get 3 or 4 of those, and you're filled up for dinner. You can also go to nice mid-range local restaurants and expect to pay $20, $30 for 2. That's wine included. My wife and I often go out to eat. We don't really go to the fancy tourist places because they tend to be crowded, and we like to go to the local places with the local Mexican food, which is delicious. And we just go to a mid-range, pretty nice place. It's not, it's a nice place, and we spend $40, $45, at one of these places, wine included. We also kind of avoid imported items at the supermarkets. We tend to go to the local markets to get fruits and vegetables, get some must-have imported items at the local supermarket. And the local supermarkets pretty much have everything you might want. I like sriracha hot sauce from Asia. They carry that at a local market, and that's one of my must-haves. My kids like Jif peanut butter, so we tend to get that, even though it's a little bit pricier. But there are some must-have items at the imported items section of the supermarket, but if you avoid most of those, you can definitely save some money. Now, a big thing is handmade wood furniture, and you can get this all over Mexico. There are artisans working in local markets, and they have storefronts as well on usually the main drag through town. You can get a dining room table. You can get headboards made for your bed. You can get shelving made, kitchen cabinets, anything you want, and it's a fraction of the price for handmade hardwood custom cabinets and furniture in Mexico. You can get it for a fraction of the price of what you would in the US, and that's a way to save as well. Now, if you rent from a local landlord and away from the main tourist areas, you can actually save a lot on your rental as well. As I mentioned before, $300 or $400 for 1 2-bedroom apartment, condo, or home in a nice neighborhood. Tends to be more of a family style local neighborhood rather than the expat heavy neighborhood that you might find condos that are going for double or triple that. So if you're a little away from the beach but still a bike ride or a walk or a bus ride to the beach, you can save a lot more money. And a little tip there, oftentimes you don't want to be in the very popular expat areas or popular tourist areas because they tend to be crowded and noisy, because a lot of people are there on vacation, they're partying, they're staying up late, they're going to nightclubs and bars and karaoke bars. And when you're away from that action in more of a local neighborhood, you save a lot of money. You have that local experience, you pick up more Spanish, you get to meet your friends and neighbors and have a good time and participate in local festivals and things like that. And you're outside of that noisy kind of tourist area, and you're saving money. So it's kind of a all-around win when you do that. Now, if you do buy property, there's good value real estate available throughout Mexico. Condos right on the beach for a couple $100,000. Beach homes and beautiful properties. And the cool thing is your carrying costs are very low. Your property taxes are going to be just a few $100 per year, even for very nice properties. Now, healthcare, as I mentioned, there's our insurance options, $2,000 to $3,000 for a couple for coverage in Mexico. And that's going to cover you at private hospitals and clinics throughout the country if you pay cash. You can also go see a doctor for about $50 for a visit, $75 for a specialist, and you can also pay cash for simple procedures as well. I think it's important to have insurance though, because even though healthcare is cheap in Mexico if you pay cash, it's definitely cheaper than the US. If you are hospitalized, if you need a major surgery, it's still going to be quite a lot of money, even if it's less money than it would be in the US. So you want to have that insurance to cover you in case of those serious situations and emergencies. Now, as I close out this little presentation, I just want to go over some of the cool things that we can afford because we live in Mexico that we couldn't in the US. So, I don't know about you guys, but typical Sunday morning and afternoon back in the US was devoted to cleaning our house and cleaning up the yard, mowing the lawn, doing some landscaping, pulling up some weeds, dusting, doing the laundry, making the beds, all that good stuff. A whole Sunday just doing cleaning and gardening and all that stuff. Here in Mexico, we have household help. We have people who come to clean our house a couple times a week. When we need some help in our garden, we have somebody come in, and we're paying about $150 per month to have that. And I can say it's well worth it. I haven't cleaned a toilet since I left the United States, and that was 8 years ago. So I'm very happy about that. Now, we also have super high-speed internet here in Mexico. We have fiber optic, 250 megabytes for $50 per month. That's fiber optic cable, 250 megabytes, $50 per month. I was telling a friend about this who lives in Florida. He's paying double that for a 100 megabyte cable connection, which he says is not that reliable. So we're pretty blessed to have really good internet here in Mexico, and this is available throughout the country. And they're expanding the fiber optic network all the time. My wife and I like to go out every once in a while. We'll have drinks at our favorite bar, maybe get a tostada or something like that, some ceviche, then we'll go out to dinner at a nice place, have a couple glasses of wine, take a taxi home, and we basically spend about $40 to $50 for the whole evening out. And we really enjoyed doing that. We couldn't do that in the US. It was just unaffordable. You're looking at double or triple that to have a nice evening. And somebody just asked, where am I located? I'm in San Miguel de Allende, central Mexico, about 4 hours north of Mexico City. It's a colonial city, UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's very beautiful, and hopefully with this COVID pandemic, hopefully it's over soon, so people can come back and visit, because it's a great place to be. And I'm glad we're stuck here if we're stuck anywhere. We have a beautiful home, and we have a nice view, so even if we're a little quarantined and on lockdown, we're still able to enjoy our time here. Okay, so back to some of the things that we can afford in Mexico that we couldn't back in the US. We go to the movies, or we did before the pandemic, pay $5 for the VIP theater, which has very limited seating, those reclining, comfortable seats where you just sit back. You can bring, they bring food to you. You can order food off a menu, including wine and beer, and they'll bring it right to you, and you can eat it right at your seat while you're watching your favorite movie. $5 for that. It's even less for just a regular movie theater. And don't get me started on the price of popcorn. It's basically free, especially compared to what you might pay in the US. Excuse me. Now, travel. There are low-cost flights around the country. For example, we were right before the pandemic, we were scheduled to fly up to Tijuana and then check out the wine country in the Valle de Guadalupe in northern Baja, go to Ensenada, Rosarito, some of those cool places up in northern Baja California. $45 per person per ticket to basically fly across the country of Mexico to go to that part of the country. So you can get low-cost flights to places like Cancun, Puerto Vallarta, Los Cabos, Oaxaca down south. Tremendously cheap. There are international and national airports and multiple airlines servicing all these routes throughout the country. Now, local transportation is incredibly cheap. We have Uber in many parts of Mexico, and taxis as well. And pretty much any trip around town is going to cost you $2 to $3, basically. You can also take a first-class bus, and that's a popular way to get around in Mexico. Luxury buses, big reclining seats, they even have Wi-Fi on the bus. A 4-hour bus trip from here in San Miguel de Allende to Mexico City, which I've made that trip many times on a first-class bus, is $25 each way. Now, nice hotels when you travel tend to be cheaper, about half or 3/4 the cost of a similar place in the U.S. So you can fly to a nice location, stay at a nice hotel on the beach, and pay a fraction of what you would for a similar trip in the U.S. In Mexico, we have lots of free concerts and entertainments. Civic authorities, municipalities, local governments, and local groups are always putting on free concerts, free cultural events. There's always some sort of festival or parade or fireworks or something going on. So there are a lot of free concerts and entertainment. There's also low-cost entertainment as well. You can go see world-class jazz musicians and classical musicians, classical concerts. For example, there's a world-class symphony in Guanajuato, which is about an hour and a half away from here. And the tickets are about $5 to $10 for a show, so you can save big time. And let's see, I'm going to just answer a few questions here as I wrap up. Would the cost of living in a small town in Baja be similar to where you live? Yes, I'd say so. And it really all depends on kind of your lifestyle and your kind of requirements. If you're okay with living in a smaller condo or smaller home, you can spend $1,200 per month if you stick with local restaurants, shop at the local markets, avoid buying a lot of imported items if you have a simpler lifestyle. And as I said before, the sky's really the limit on the top end because Mexico has it all. We have first world amenities, all sorts of fancy restaurants, fancy hotels, fancy gated communities, and so you can spend a whole lot more as well. Okay, so, somebody wants to see my house. Well, that's going to have to be another video, but maybe I'll give you a little tour of my front garden here. And you can see that's the wall out to the street. You can see some hummingbirds. We have hummingbird feeders. That's my kids' trampoline. And this is our little container garden. And maybe I can show you a bit of the house. I'm going mobile here. Okay, so I'll just show you. We actually have 3 stories, and that's our rooftop terrace up there. So we sit up there a lot, watch sunset, and we can see pretty much the whole town from there. So let's see, Kyle asks, is the process of applying for resident cards complicated? Actually, it's quite simple, and it's very efficient. You can find some information on the International Living website if you go to the Mexico page. I've written an article all about residence requirements and how you apply. But the short version is you apply at a consulate or embassy in your home country. Mexico has a dozen or more consulates throughout the United States. There's sure to be one near you. Basically, you bring in all your documents there. You complete an initial interview. They check your income requirements, and then you finish the process at the immigration office in Mexico once you get here. The requirement basically, as far as income goes, is they want to see a steady income for temporary residency of about $1,500 per month. That changes with the exchange rates, so just a caveat there. For permanent residency, you're looking at about $2,500 per month in income required to get that residency. And you also have to turn in things like a copy of your passport. If you're married, you have to show your marriage license. If you have dependent children, you have to show birth certificates so you can prove that family relationship. Some consulates want to see the income come from Social Security or a pension or some sort of guaranteed source like that. Some are okay with other forms of income, so you just have to check with the local consulate. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up this Facebook Live. I will go through the comments, so if anybody has any more questions, I'll be scanning that today and over the next couple days to answer any further questions that come up. And just be sure to check the link in the description. It goes into a bunch more detail about cost of living in Mexico, and we also have a ton of information about Mexico, different locations, places like San Miguel de Allende, Puerto Vallarta, the Riviera Maya, pretty much anywhere you can think of in Mexico, we have a page dedicated to it. We also talk about the visa and residency process, the process of buying property, even how to bring your pets into Mexico, which is actually a very easy process. I have 3 dogs. So thank you so much for joining me on Facebook Live. This was the cost of living in Mexico. I hope you guys learned a lot. I enjoyed presenting, and I always enjoy talking to people about Mexico and telling them how great it is in many different ways. So thank you so much for joining me. And as I mentioned, ask any questions you want in the comments. I'll be going through and answering those by typing them out today and tomorrow and over the next few days. So thank you very much. Hasta luego.